We are live, and I did not plan to be live on my own page, but we decided, you know what? It's Friday. Let's go live. It is Friday, right? That's how live this is. I think it's Friday. This is on my own YouTube page, and we thought, hey, I'm in MEGACON Orlando. There's an awesome crowd here. We're going to talk Star Wars, and I want to hear by an overall vibe. How's our MEGACON so far? I support this overall vibe. Before I bring out the guest of the hour, what has our favorite experience been so far? First, just this half of this side. Yell out a thing you've enjoyed. Meeting Mario? Artist Alley. Oh, Artist Alley is the answer. Okay, I love that. Full support. All right, this half of this side. Favorite thing so far? Collectibles. You're in the right place. This half of this side. Favorite thing so far? Your own cosplay. I support narcissism. I'm on stage with lights on. Carl Weathers, what a guy, man. That was such an honor. Carl Weathers, what a delight. Other half, final half. You met who? Oh, how is she? Fantastic. All right. That's all the Van McCarl's going to get. All right. So, without further ado, the great, the one, the only, Carly King, join us. Welcome.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
Doing it live.
And this is on my page. These are like, I got little people popping in. This is exciting.
That's us.
I haven't gone live on my
That's
own
us.
page in like 6 months.
That's so
Sorry,
cool.
my page.
I'm too short for this. I'm way too short for this.
I'm so excited. You and I have never officially talked Star Wars.
I know. We've never officially talked, like, actually.
So this is going to be
This is
interesting.
crazy.
So Carly and I are good friends in real life, and we work together a lot on various things. But I think we, out of the sake of our friendship, don't talk about Star Wars or Marvel
We don't.
for safety.
It's bad.
So now we decided to do it live in front of people,
yes.
which is certainly a choice.
It's definitely a choice.
I want to know, first of all, why Star Wars?
Why Star Wars? That's a good question. So I guess it starts with whenever I was a child, my uncle had gotten me into the original series Star Trek, the original series. Star Wars, the original trilogy. I grew up kind of around these live action, life-size Star Wars statues from like Sideshow or Regal Robot. And I was like, what is this giant, weird, kind of tentacle man, but also kind of like mousy? Like, he had a life-size Jar Jar Binks. And I just wanted to know what that was because I was interested in it. So he basically introduced me into, of course, A New Hope was the first movie I watched. Empire Strikes Back was the first movie I really got into and started to love it. And then Return of the Jedi, and then the prequels. I fell in love.
All right, I need the crowd for the understanding of how this conversation is going to go. Are we original trilogy fans?
Thank you. Yes.
Are we prequel trilogy fans? Are we sequel trilogy fans? As someone who likes things, I like that we're in for all, at least to a point. I think that all art has merit.
I think so.
Because on the rundown of this, we did mention hot takes, and I will own my being the enemy of the people. And we're going to talk about the fact that The Last Jedi is the best since Empire, but not yet. We will, but not yet. So your first introduction was Jar Jar.
Jar Jar Binks.
What level
Lord.
of caught up are we with Mandalorian? I feel like it's been 3 weeks. Is that an acceptable thing for, like, 3 weeks is a window of spoilers in 2023 that's acceptable. Your exposure to the thing that shaped your career was recently given some love. And I want to know what your first thought was when you saw someone on screen.
So I believe we're talking about Ahmed Best, if I could say that, if I'm allowed. Cheers for Ahmed. I'm so happy for him. I mean, spoilers ahead if you haven't seen not the newest episode, but the second newest episode. He popped up and saved Grogu. I mean, seeing him on screen and getting the love as Kelleran Beck from the old Jedi Temple Challenge, I was like just so happy he's finally getting the love he deserves due to all the hate that he's gotten throughout these years from the prequels. It's all come full circle, not only for him, but me as a fan of the prequels originally, it's incredible to see him back.
So I want to ask you, and then I want a audience sound as reaction, whether you think this is true or not. Do you think the prequel trilogy is getting love now because it is the right time that has passed for everyone that was a certain age to be the voice of the people? Or do you think it was made in a way that it wasn't able to be appreciated until now? Do you think it just got good, or was it always good? Do you know what I mean? There's an important distinction.
That's smart. Yeah. So I feel like for everybody, we all kind of grew up with a certain trilogy of Star Wars, whether it's the prequels or the original series or even the sequels. And I feel like we all have this nostalgic connection to all of these movies. I mean, me growing up, I'm 21 years old. I technically grew up with the prequels, but my uncle and my family introduced me to the original series. So every time I see something pop up in the recent shows from the original series, it makes me happy, if that makes sense. But for some people, if something pops up like the guy who plays Jar Jar, and they grew up with the prequels, it's like a nostalgic, good feeling.
So do you guys think, I'm going to start, we're going to call it nostalgic, but I'm adding more to that. Do you think it's about us being at a certain age that we enjoy it? I want to hear that cheer. Yeah. Do you think it's actually good? Okay, because I think those are different things, and I'm really curious because, like, I love 80s movies, but some 80s movies are good, and some 80s movies are 80s movies.
Definitely.
And there's a distinction that I'm really curious about in, like, 10 years when we look at the prequels, once we've settled into this new acceptance, whether we see them as true.
Right.
Because I do think in, like, 15 years, the sequels are going to be loved.
I feel like, yeah, you're right.
Like,
I feel
if we can love the prequels, we can love the sequels. Those movies are hard to. I mean, I love movies. I think it's gonna be a lot easier to love a cuter baby.
Right.
All babies are cute. Some babies are cuter. Yeah. I worry that the nostalgia is an interesting thing that's gonna shape the shows, right? Because we have a lot of prequel influence in the shows.
A lot. I mean, even down to the cinematography of the second most recent episode. It's like you see Coruscant, you see Keller and Beck driving Grogu through Coruscant, and it's like
directed by Carl Weathers. King. Saw him this morning. Just
he's incredible.
Giving
some love to the man. But when I was watching it, some of my friends, we had a conversation about it afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, I hated it. It was so cheesy." And I'm like, "This is Star Wars. This is so innately prequel-esque that I just can't help but love it and think it's nostalgic and so great."
This is pod racing.
This is pod racing.
Well, that's what I think is interesting, right? Like, different Star Wars are different. The trilogies are all very different. Like, and the first one is a kind of conversation piece. It's a different feel, and the original trilogy is an adventure epic for all ages. And then I would argue the new trilogy, I don't think we've got a tone for it yet, because it was like two movies with one in the middle that are like, it's a different thing. So I'm really curious in 15 years, once we've assessed the sequels like we have the prequels, what that'll be in its nostalgia.
I feel like people might do to Daisy Ridley what they did with Jar Jar, like Rey with Jar Jar. It's like people
I think it's
might not. Or Finn,
I think
too.
Finn's going to finally get some Star like love with him being a Jedi.
Right. It might give a couple years to people to maybe start to love her instead of hate her like they did at first, sadly. But, you know.
I feel like Finn's our redemption story to come. Because I like he deserves it. Of all the characters, 100%. When I watch those movies, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
So your love of Star Wars began at a young age, and you turned it into a full-on career.
Somehow.
Which is awesome.
Thank you.
What is it you think that is your connection with the fandom, not the movies?
Ooh, good question. Koi is just full of great questions.
I got you.
I feel like the thing that made me connect with the fandom the most in terms of feeling comfortable enough to start creating content was just realizing that we're kind of all in it together. You know what I mean? Like, we all have we might not agree that the sequels are great. We might not agree that the prequels are great. We might not love the original series just as much, but Star Wars is for everyone. If somebody doesn't like something, someone's gonna like another thing. But what we all love the most is Star Wars, is George Lucas's story. And I feel like that realization kind of made me feel comfortable with coming out on the internet and starting to make like me spinning a lightsaber on the beach, or like me talking about like my hot takes, or like what I love about Star Wars. And I feel like it was very comforting just because I know we all love George Lucas's Star Wars. Yeah.
So
and Filoni too.
Is there any element of Star Wars that you hope to see more of going forward, since it does seem all on the table?
Oh, Darth Maul, 100%. I want to see more Maul. I know we've seen a lot, and I know a lot of people might disagree, but I feel like there's more to the story of the formation of the Crimson Dawn that I would love to see. I mean, Jar Jar's got the necklace for some reason. Maybe he's a Sith Lord. You never know. Jar Jar the Crimson Dawn Sith Lord.
Just like takes his little green mask
off.
He
takes the mask off.
Like
he's
Mission
actually
Impossible,
Maul.
and he's a little tiny Maul.
Could you imagine?
Little legs, little spider legs.
Anything's possible at this point. You never know.
So I think there's 4 ways to go with the future of the franchise, and I want to hear by your reaction. What would you do? So I think there's dive deeper into the prequels, which feels like is what they're doing. Oh, yeah. Dive further than the sequels. Rehash the Skywalkers, or go in a completely new direction. Those are the 4 ways I think like they can go. So would you guys want to see them invest deeper into prequel lore? Would you want to see them invest deeper past the sequels, like in episode 10? Would we want to see them make another person a Skywalker somehow? Thank you so much. I want this galaxy far, far away to have more than one family in it. And then, finally, do we want to see stuff we've never seen before?
Yes, 100%.
George Lucas. Well, you're clearly responsible. Filoni. So I think I agree. I want to see a little bit of prequel love, and I think most of all I want to see new things.
I would love to see new, and I like that we're getting new with The Mandalorian. I mean, it's been incredible so far. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen the newest episode. I've been traveling. I have not been able to get to it.
We've been here.
But I've heard good things about people coming to live act, creatures coming to live action and things. You know, I'm not going to say everything, but I'm sure some of us haven't seen the new episode. But I feel like there's a bright future ahead for Star Wars. I know it might seem dim right now, but from what I've heard, things are going to get really, really, really good.
So with the way you emotionally connect to Star Wars, having grown up with it, what was the first live theatrical experience for you? Like when you hadn't had to have that, you hadn't had that opportunity for so long.
Right.
What was that first theater experience?
So as a child, my parents never really bought me to the theater to watch Star Wars because they thought it was too intense, I think. Even though I watched like the Deathly Hallows like as a child, you know what I mean? Because you know, it's not as scary, sure. But my uncle is actually the one who kind of introduced us to the bigger world. So I never actually went to the theater to watch it on the big screen. I fell in love with it on like just a normal box TV as a child. Yeah. And not only was it the movies, but I fell in love with the shows, like growing up watching the Clone Wars, being around all the toys and the collectibles. It was just, that's kind of how I fell in love with it. You know what I mean?
So would you want to see, for example, the shows on a big screen to get that access point?
Yes.
Because that's for me, like, the thing we're missing is I'd love to see these Marvel shows, these Star Wars shows. Like if they had a marathon events, like would we not all be there? Like people are dressed as it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I was at Star Wars Celebration and they actually played the entirety of the Siege of Mandalore. So I got to sit and watch it like on the big screen. And I, of course, sat in the front row. I had watched the Siege of Mandalore so many times to be able to quote all of Maul's lines at this point. But the reason why I sat in the front was because Dave Filoni was going to come out and talk about it afterwards. And I wanted to sit right in front of Dave Filoni. But yeah, I mean, seeing the Clone Wars on the big screen was already like just life-changing, even though I've seen it so many times on like my own TV. But I feel like having The Mandalorian on the big screen, whether it's a marathon or anything, I feel like that would be, I mean, it would bring a lot more people to Star Wars, I think.
So someone in the chat just said, I'd love to see Andor on the big screen. I agree.
Oh my gosh,
Andor was my jam.
Andor was incredible. I love that show.
Andor's a great example of the specificity of universe while being very differently toned.
Right.
And I'd argue right now, like Star Wars is doing a lot of the strength of what Marvel had been doing in phase 1 through 3 with diversifying tone, but still being authentic to the core of what it is. And I think that's what we're going to get with James Gunn's entire DCU. I think that's what we're going to get once Marvel takes a break and kind of like shifts. I think Marvel's going to come back plenty strong with their tone shifts. But I think right now Star Wars has that. My only concern, and I want to know if you share it, is they need to announce something so big at Celebration to have us feel like Star Wars.
Right.
Because they're taking a 2-year gap.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything big enough they could announce?
I mean, I think my immediate thought is a movie, but at this point, it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly who that will be directed by, who that would be created by. I mean, I'm hoping for something big. I honestly have no idea what that would be, because we're already getting great shows with The Mandalorian, with Ahsoka coming up. We had Bad Batch that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And as well as Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte, which I'm incredibly excited for. So I feel like, if they didn't announce something big, it would kind of course, be a really big letdown. But I know we're going to get some big news for Ahsoka, like a trailer and stuff.
I do like that we have so much to come that they don't have to. I'm really curious. Like, so I have this thing.
They should, but...
Expectation versus entitlement so tricky with fandoms, right? Like we're all so wanting and we have all this, but then we get mad when it can't come out when they said it was going to come out in like 32 years.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to have that line because the internet's like, oh, that news is old. It came out 6 hours ago. Like I haven't watched this week's Mandalorian and I feel like, well, like it's so interesting that it's so fickle.
Yeah.
What would you hope to do if you were in control of a movie? What would you hope to have a piece of?
Oh, okay. That's an easy question. That's an easy answer. No, I'm just kidding. I would love to bring to life George Lucas's belief of the sequels, what he wanted to achieve with it. I'm not sure if you guys know a lot about it. Yeah. So he wanted to basically talk about Maul and Kira, basically make Solo the sequels, if that makes sense. So I would love to make Solo 2.
I love the Solo 2 crowd being so specific.
I know,
it's
such
so a very specific
but
market.
I mean, my love for the Sith and the Crimson Dawn, I think that it would be
I think I like the spin-off films as much or more than the prequels and the sequels.
Valid.
As a
I mean, Rogue One.
I think Rogue One and Solo are better for me, and better is subjective. This is art. It's all opinion. But I like Rogue One and Solo more than Episode 8 or 7 or 9.
Wow. Okay.
And then the only one of the sequels that I think is as good as the originals is Ryan's.
Right.
And then the prequels I would love to understand. I would love that one day.
Right.
And I think I'll find them, but I just have not found them yet. So I want to know if you were to have someone like me who loves the originals and likes the new ones, what would you tell them about the prequels that I do not speak? What would you like? What's the Rosetta Stone? What am I missing?
Oh gosh. It's like something to make you like the prequels.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells the story of how Anakin became Darth Vader. I mean, it's the basis of the Skywalker saga. I mean, getting into the prequels or not getting into the prequels is like not getting into the original Sorcerer's Stone, from Harry Potter. It's like you're missing the point of the story,
They did it. They had 3. It made sense. I had no issues. I knew Vader was bad.
But imagine knowing why.
I can, and I would like to know it in a movie.
Right. So
not 6 hours of politics.
6 amazing hours. I mean, 6 hours is a school day for people. Imagine watching Star Wars for that entirety.
I feel like the Metachlorian class would not suit my sensibilities. Right. It's just really interesting because it is a different tone, and I do feel like it feels like Star Wars, but it doesn't feel like any other Star Wars. I would argue the sequels feel more like the originals than the prequels do, but the prequels don't like...
Well, George Lucas wanted them to be different than the originals. He wanted to make sure that it was a new thing, using new technology that was incredible at the time, and he didn't really want it to make it feel so much like the originals. But I feel like with the sequels, they wanted it to feel nostalgic for people who came back, instead of they see a new movie, it's a new Star Wars movie. They wanted to have the grab of Han Solo and having Chewie and bringing them back to the Millennium Falcon. Again, it goes back to like the nostalgic side of things. It's like it's supposed to be different.
I do think the brilliance of the prequels is they were original when we were making movies. Like that came out the same year as like the Matrix sequels. Like we were making like a lot bolder of films, I think, in the early 2000s with our blockbusters. So I will give them all that credit. And I do think the issue of nostalgia has gotten to the point where it's not a genre. We should stop letting that be a rule.
Right.
And so I do think it suffers.
Yeah.
But that's why I love The Last Jedi. So we're talking about The Last Jedi. Goodbye, everyone watching this chat. I think The Last Jedi is what blockbusters can be when they're allowed to be as bold as blockbusters were when they were making the prequels. And that's why I think it's so interesting that the prequels get the love now that The Last Jedi doesn't, because what you just described George Lucas is doing is trying to mix it up, trying to use the characters but in a new and original way, trying to make it feel different. And I think the idea of holding something up to a pedestal it can't live up to and then it crushing under its own weight is fandom. And Rian Johnson made a movie that was poking at fandom, and then fandom retaliated exactly as he predicted. He made a movie 2 years before the movie was released, and people reacted like the movie wanted it to. And I think that's beautiful. And I also think that like Killing Your Darlings is what good literature is made of, and that movie is Kill Your Darlings cinema.
Okay.
That's why I love it.
Yeah. I mean, and I love like the way you're coming at it. Like I believe that of course the sequels brought in new characters instead of just focusing on the nostalgic aspect of it. I really, really connected with the cinematography of the sequels. I will say it's some of the best cinematography I've seen from any Star Wars.
What's the name of the sequence with the red
the throne room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throne room's the coolest scene.
Oh, it was great. And I loved it. And I loved there were things I loved about the sequels.
Oh no, I'm gonna stick with Last Jedi. I'm gonna get you in this corner. We're talking Last Jedi.
No,
okay. Listen, audience, how many Last Jedi fans we got? I want to hear Last Jedi fans.
Okay.
What was that? The Kylo part. The Kylo part.
I agree.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
I think Kylo's a great villain.
I loved him. He was my favorite character in the sequels.
I feel like Darth Maul got the same treatment that Mahershala got in Luke Cage. Why introduce a cool villain? Get rid of him halfway. Now I don't want to keep going. Luke Cage season 1. As soon as Mahershala was gone, nobody else watched Luke Cage in this room. I'm alone in this reference. But it was great for half. So someone else. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Maul got Mahershala, which is now a verb. The Last Jedi, can you, even if it's not your cup of tea, appreciate the boldness, or is that the problem?
Oh yeah, I can appreciate the boldness of it. I will say it just it didn't go the way that I, as a fan, really wanted, but I think that's okay. I mean, there's some things that we like, and there's some things that we don't like, and I feel like we can all have our own things.
Again, like the prequels, me not getting them is something that I wish I want to. So like, it's not a thing where I consider them lesser. I consider them just like not my flavor of ice cream.
Of course. Yeah. And there's many flavors of ice cream.
Right.
Just like Star Wars.
I like vanilla and chocolate more than strawberry in that like whole situation. I'm going to stick to that side.
Yeah.
Which is fittingly 2/3 of the trilogies, which is what I enjoy.
Okay.
Now, I do think though The Last Jedi came out in a time where nostalgia was so rampant that the vitriol towards it would not have ever been as strong if not for nostalgia.
Right.
Because I think that it was about an anti-nostalgia film in an age of like, please just remind me of when things were simpler. I need this right now. Right. And now like everyone that was like, you've made me think the bad thing is just angry. Do you think that it'll ever get the love Episode 1 got now?
You mean right now?
Like, no. Like the way Episode 1 is seen now, do you think Last Jedi can get there?
Yeah, I think everything can get to that point eventually. Maybe not soon, due to the amount of hate that it gets.
Fair.
Still, after years after it came out.
Half this room at least gave me like a hand up. Like that's a solid. Like I was surprised. Not gonna lie to you. That makes me happy.
Sure. Yeah. There were very good parts of the sequels, I will say. But
I love that she won't even say The Last Jedi. She won't even say the words. She said the sequels so many times, like that's not included. She's like, it's the sequels. You know that concept.
Sure.
Okay. Do you think that 7, 8, and 9 are all equal in your experience?
Ooh. Yes.
Wow.
Oh no. Actually,
Lawyering.
Force Awakens was my favorite.
Okay.
Yes, I will say Force Awakens was my favorite. I thought it was a great movie.
Was that your first Star Wars in theaters?
No. Oh,
Okay.
no.
Well, because I mean, you were so young.
Empire Strikes Back was because they
Oh,
had
so you
had.
saw a re-release. I was like, you were not
I
born in
saw all the
77, I promise you.
re-releases. Yeah, I never saw them in the theaters when they came out, like the prequels and everything, or the originals. I wasn't alive back then,
Yeah.
but I did see the reruns.
So Empire was your first theatrical Star Wars.
Empire was my first, and it's still my favorite to this day. I adore that movie.
Ooh, let's do that. Let's break it down before we get into our next segment. We're gonna go in episode order, not release order. So you can cheer for all of them because I like cheering, but your loudest cheer, your favorite Star Wars. All right, episode 1, favorite Star Wars. Fair. Episode 2, favorite Star Wars. I would have been shocked. Episode 3, favorite Star Wars. The end of episode 3 is so good that it makes me want to rewatch 1, 2, and get it. So I will one day.
You will.
So episode 3, we got some moves. Episode 4, A New Hope.
Nice. Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
All right. Return of the Jedi.
So good.
Force Awakens.
Okay.
Last Jedi.
Okay.
And what's the last one called?
The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise. He did that. Rise of Skywalker. That's how I forgot the name, so I feel bad that I clearly gave my hand away.
Okay.
So it seems like Empire is the overall consensus of, and that I think that's fair to say. How many series of 9 films have a singular favorite? That's pretty rare.
That is rare.
You look at like series.
Yeah, whenever I think of any movies with a ton of movies within the saga, like of course I keep bringing it up, but the first thing that comes to mind is Harry Potter, just because I love it almost as much as I love Star Wars.
And I feel like there's no favorite Harry Potter.
There's no favorite Harry Potter. They're all so good.
Either Goblet or Prisoner of Azkaban for me.
Yes, exactly.
One of the two.
Yeah.
But like, I don't have a favorite Bond. I don't have a favorite Lord of the Rings.
Bourne. Like, I don't have any, like, no 007 film is my favorite.
Casino Royale, maybe. But yeah, it's interesting. Like that episode 9, like we consistently pick Empire of 9 episodes of that series.
Because it's amazing.
What do you think it is about Empire that is so timeless?
I mean,
because they just say the sad ending, but then you guys don't like Last Jedi.
I mean, in A New Hope, we saw a lot of, it's going to sound crazy, but we saw a lot of sand. We saw a lot of growth. We saw a lot of
course,
like, it was the beginning of Star Wars. And honestly, I would argue that A New Hope could be my favorite just because it was George Lucas's. He created it from nothing. I mean, he made something so incredibly huge from nothing.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing to ever come of it. That was what it was. And I feel like Empire, what they did with A New Hope was already incredible, but they took A New Hope and they were like, how can we expand on that story? Mm-hmm. And that is what birthed Empire. And we saw the Battle of Hoth. We saw so much in that movie that just introduced us to new things. I guess maybe that's different for each Star Wars fan, whether they grew up with the prequels or grew up with the originals. But since I grew up with the originals, I feel like it really just blew my mind. It expanded my mind after watching it.
Okay, so I love crowdsourcing. Clearly, I keep referring to you guys. You're part of this. Yes. I think that my favorite characters, no matter what, are from the original trilogy, though.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
Definitely.
So I want to know tonally, are we more Jedi? More Sith?
Yeah.
And my personal, more side characters. Because I think like Han Solo is like way more interesting.
I love Han Solo. I mean, he's my favorite non-Force user.
Is that like a thing? Do you guys separate them in categories?
I do separate them like as my favorite Force user and my favorite non-Force
Who's your favorite Force user?
Darth Maul.
Oh, okay. That was obvious. That's just like
I mean, I have a Darth Maul Arabesh tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but it has Maul and Arabesh. Okay, so I told you before I have a theory about you that I was going to reveal on this stage. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh God, I'm not prepared for this. Whatever this is, so I'm scared. I literally told Carly this I think like 2 days ago, and I've never told her this in real life, so I want to see how accurate I am. And it's like an assessment of you. Oh God. Okay. So she is a stuntie. She's obsessed with Star Wars, and she has turned that into an entire career. But a foundation of that career is your incredible lightsaber choreography. Thank you. So my assessment of the reason you're drawn to that specificity of specificity is it's fandom based.
It's something acrobatic, but it also suits your personality because it's something you do entirely on your own. You don't have to depend on other people to like make you better at it. It's something that inherently is beautiful and draws people's eyes in, but keeps people away because it's a defensive act.
Ooh.
So it's literally the act of, hey, this is cool. You stay over there. I made this myself. And I feel like that's like a very it's your calling card is your personality in like, and that's a compliment.
Okay.
You have the ability to be like, oh, that's interesting, but I will not challenge her to a duel. And I think that like you found you were good at a thing that was inherently your personality. I think a lot of people shape their personalities around what they're good at and vice versa. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment. Yeah.
I think that's you.
Yeah.
Because like lightsabers are not like welcoming.
Right.
But like you've turned the whole career into people watching you do it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it all started in quarantine. Like whenever I was locked inside. Yeah.
You're very good at it.
So thank you. Well, no, I grew up doing martial arts. I've done martial arts for 12 years of my life. Taekwondo, Krav Maga, kickboxing, and a bunch of Kali sticks, which is the Filipino martial art of Eskrima. And I basically turned my love of martial arts and love of stunt work into my love of Star Wars and kind of merged the two together. And I remember like in quarantine, I was like, of course, not leaving the house as a lot of us weren't. And I had fallen back in love with Star Wars because I was like, what am I going to do with my time? I rewatched the entire Skywalker saga. I rewatched Clone Wars, Rebels, Star Wars Resistance, Rogue One, Solo. Like I literally went through every single piece of Star Wars. I read the Thrawn books. Like I wanted to go so deep into Star Wars, right? I love Timothy Zahn is incredible. He's so good. But I wanted to know everything I could about Star Wars. Like as much as I already loved it, I wanted to love it more. I had the time, you know? So I took my love of martial arts. I got a lightsaber from a friend of mine. I went on the beach and I just spun it for TikTok. And I posted it to TikTok. And for some reason, people saw it and they were like, this is new. This is cool. We like that. Let's all like do it. And it started this whole entire community of just like people spinning lightsabers for the fun of it. You know what I mean? And just seeing that grow from like when TikTok wasn't cool, seeing that grow from just being nothing to being this entire fandom of people loving to spin lightsabers. It's just so cool to see.
Lil Mill in the chat said, Carly taught me how to spin my lightsaber from Disneyland. LOL.
Love that.
All right. I want to keep an eye on some of these questions, but if you guys have any questions, does that mic work? The one over there? If you guys have any questions, we'll do that by all means. But in the meantime, I'm going to speed round ask you questions.
Okay.
If you could go to any planet on vacation in any Star Wars, which one?
Endor.
If you could live on any planet, which one?
Coruscant.
If you could go there with your family to show them around, but they don't know Star Wars, which one?
Kashyyyk.
Which weapon would you want to have forever?
A lightsaber.
Which weapon would you want to have for 1 minute?
A E11 blaster rifle.
Which character would you want to meet for like dinner, just a singular event?
Starkiller.
What character would you want to live with?
Han Solo. No. Princess Leia. She'd be a great roommate.
Oh, she'd be a great roommate. I feel like Han Solo would be an awful roommate.
Oh no, he'd be awful.
Like immediately,
that's the
only one I've
disagreed
disagreed with immediately. I'm like, that sounds. He's a scruffy looking nerf herder.
Yeah, what a weirdo.
Means, I don't know what it means, but it means it's messy.
Such a scoundrel, you know?
Okay, good. We agree. What character would you want to adopt into your family?
Oh God, Lumpy from the holiday special.
Ooh, Grogu or Babu Freak?
Grogu.
Disagree.
That's nuts.
Babu Freak is the best of us.
That's nuts.
Actually, you know what? It's weird that there's multiple Babu Freaks.
That's true.
I don't know why. I just thought he was his own man. And then there was an episode where there was a bunch of them, and I was like, I feel invalidated. I don't know. I felt like I identified with my guy, and there was a whole bunch of them. They were all like drunks, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know about you, Babu Freaks.
They are.
They're
drinking a little too much blue milk.
There's a lot of.
They're
cleaning engines and then taking nips.
What are they doing on their breaks?
I don't know. Yeah, I want to know. Tell me about the Babu Freaks.
I wish I could. I mean, could anybody?
I just want to know them better.
No.
I've been very curious about that entire race.
I need to dive into the lore of Babu
Let
Freaks.
me know what Thrawn book features the Babu. I will. Also, is that the right pluralization? The Babu Freaks?
What are they called?
I feel like they go to Burning Man.
Anthelans.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
They're only Babu Freaks once you get to know them.
Anthelans. And Zellens, exactly.
Zellens
yeah, I was
with a
like,
Z?
yeah, and Zellens.
Okay, we're gonna save me from this odd journey I was going down with Babu Freaks.
We're gonna do that at
Do you
dinner.
have a question? You're just standing there
Yeah.
by a microphone. You're welcome to
Well,
use it.
one, my legs are tired, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
two,
fair enough.
Same.
You're talking about things to do in the, prequel, sequel. What do you think about if they made live action of the Old Republic trailers, like The Deceived?
Oh, like with Revan and Bastilla Shawn?
Yeah,
I would
that
love
is what I
that.
want to see live action. Lord of the
That's
Rings
fun.
meets Star Wars.
I like that a lot.
I would love that. I mean, I love Bastilla Shawn and the story of Darth Malgus and Darth Revan. I think it's awesome, and I think we should dive more into that, especially live action.
Now that you've opened that can of worms, I want to open this up to anyone that wants to either comment or question. But if you want to ask a question, have this ready. What Star Wars movie would you make? Infinite budget, infinite power, characters alive or dead. You have full range. Because I really, 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 really want to make Top Gun with X-wings.
Yes.
I really want Top
so
Gun
like
Maverick.
Star Wars
What Patty Jenkins sounded like she was saying.
squadrons.
Yeah.
And yeah, with
Like
dude, that would be
the
sick.
Squadron game, but like
Yeah.
live action. I want like
yeah.
Glenn Powell as Wedge's grandson because
Oh,
everyone's related.
Of course. Who else?
Little Wedge Antilles.
Yeah. Who else?
A smaller Wedge because you cut smaller. Sir,
fry.
well dressed.
Thank you.
Nice.
To answer your question, first off, I would probably make a horror style Darth Vader film, like R-rated, like
That would be dope.
absolutely.
Like the comics.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like the comics are great. Also, I have a question for Koi specifically, actually.
I got you.
As someone
Last
who's-
Jedi.
Not about the Last Jedi, actually about your prequel hate or dislike. As someone who's not a fan of the prequels, I'm also not the biggest fan per se. I love the Clone Wars. What are your thoughts on the show?
I think the Clone Wars was able to give me what the movies promised, like or like what the movies I thought were trying to deliver. I thought the Clone Wars did deliver.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the Clone Wars, but it actually made me more confused by my not being able to connect to the prequels.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because I was like, oh, I like this, and then I was like, I was supposed to like that. It's similar. Why don't I like that? And like, I can't. It's like someone speaking Latin, and I know the core words because Latin is like something we've taken words from. So like, I'm watching this thing going like, I almost get you. Why?
Yeah.
I got you. Alrighty.
And so like,
Honestly.
I like the Clone Wars, and it made me want to like the prequels even more. And I hope I like try the prequels every 5 years, like to see if my taste buds have changed, like mayo, which I also don't like.
Fair enough. Alrighty, I'll pass it on to the next one.
Thanks, man.
Hey.
Another
Hello
well-dressed
there.
gentleman.
All right, so just to piggyback off his question, I think a lot of people came to appreciate the prequels more as a result of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of fleshing out that gap between the original trilogy and the sequels could help reinvigorate appreciation for the sequels, tie up some loose ends, and help the appreciation 10, 15 years down the road like we saw with the prequels?
So you're saying after episode 6, before 7, that gap?
Yeah, kind of explaining more how it got there, how they arrived there, Snoke, all those different.
I have a
What
take, but
happened
I
to
want to hear
Luke?
Carly's first.
Yeah, I feel like what we all want as Star Wars fan is a completion of the timeline, just to know what happens between everything, you know. So I would think that bringing more into that gap will make people love it more. Like with what you were saying about the prequels, how like people loved it years later. I feel like with the sequels, people will love it more years later because we'll have that connection to bring things, kind of make things make more sense, if that makes sense.
I want it, but only as a TV show, because I think I'd want it to
Yeah,
have the
same.
time to breathe that it
Mhm.
clearly didn't have. So like, I wouldn't want like an episode 6.5. That'd be weird. Like, you know what
Same,
I want?
yeah.
I'd want like Finn's story as a stormtrooper that would spin off into a prequel, sequel, reboot for Finn. I'd want something that would give me the backstory, would give me forward story, and would then show me like, hey, I can trust you again. You've hurt me before. So like, I would have an element of maybe a few different corners that would bridge that gap, but I wouldn't want it to be too direct, because then that's just it would feel almost like pandering. It would feel like an apology, and I don't want an apology. I just want a building. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I want.
Yeah.
Hope that answers.
Yeah, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
Great question, because I've thought about
was
that a lot.
good. Yeah.
Also, that's where you can put some of that George Lucas stuff.
Yeah.
That you want to make.
Yeah.
It's right there.
It's all there.
Good
All
stuff.
right. So to go off your movie idea, what I want to do is kind of like go back to the core of Star Wars. Like one of the big cores is the battling of like light and dark, inner struggle, inner turmoil, stuff we saw with Kylo Ren in the sequels and Anakin's, struggle throughout the 1 through 6. I want to see a Darth Revan movie, maybe like a trilogy of just like his journey and like how he's able to go, went to the dark, came back, and I think it would be sick to see live action dual blades like we saw with Ahsoka. So that's my movie idea. But I used to be a big fan of The Last Jedi when it first came out, but then I rewatched it. Well, I rewatched all the sequels, and then my love for it kind of died. But my question kind of leads to, what's your thoughts on the Canto Bight section in The Last Jedi? Because I think of the sequels as like a big synonymous like blob where there's like really high points in the blob, and then there's some really low points in the blob, which I think could be said about the prequels too. But that's just something to piggyback off. But my big question is like, what's your thoughts on like the Canto Bight section?
So I wasn't as bothered by
I'll let
Canto
you-
Bight.
yeah,
I mean,
I'll
I
let
feel
you
like
answer.
you just talked about the sequels vaguely.
No, can't.
I wasn't as bothered by Canto Bight as a lot of people because I feel like it was in the spirit of, to me, Star Wars is all joy and set pieces and like insane creatures. So for me, it was actually odd when I walked out and everybody was like, that thing was silly. And I was like, I'm sorry to say, Star Wars is silly. Like it felt like I was missing an extra layer of thing that insulted beyond a thing. Cause I was like, guys, there's a cantina where we all do this music called jizz. Like it's crazy that we can like call thing, and that's what it's called. Is jizz
It
music.
is what it's called.
Spoiler alert.
It's not
They call it
jazz.
jizz.
It is,
but
yeah.
like you can say something like that and make it canon. But then like I don't know, guys. This it's pretty silly. They got this casino. Like it just I don't get the hate as compared to anything else. So when I look back on Last Jedi, that was one of those moments where I felt like people were like, I'd like to be angry, please. I would like to be mad at this. And I was like, why? So I have nothing against it. I get why people are mad, but they should be mad at a lot of other stuff too. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Oh, hey, what's up?
How
I
you
was
doing?
so hoping this
Hello.
would turn into In Defense of the Last Jedi, and I'm
No.
planting those seeds.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm a huge fan of Rebels, and I'm wondering when we're going to see Ezra and Thrawn come back, and what you think that would look like. So
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think it would look incredible. I mean, the fact that not only are we getting them live action, but we're getting Dave Filoni to do it and Jon Favreau. And I have full trust in their vision of these characters that they love so much that I just know for a fact that it's going to be incredible. I mean, even Timothy Zahn and the character that he created, which is Thrawn, I just know it's going to be really, really good. I'm excited to see how they look too, live action, especially Thrawn.
I think Jon Favreau is perhaps the most underrated creator alive.
Yes.
And I don't think that he's not loved. So it's
Mhm.
impressive that he's still. I think Donald Glover and Jon Favreau
Yes.
are Beethoven and Mozart.
Yes.
They're
that's
people
true.
we're going to look back on in 100 years and go, we did a lot of messy stuff, but those two guys really had it together.
Yep.
So when I look at Donald Glover's career, anything he does, I'm like, that's going to elevate the medium. When I look at Jon Favreau on anything, I'm like, that's the guy that'll get me like the prequels. So if he's attached, I'm in because
Same.
not only is he giving us Marvel, when Kevin Feige deserves credit, but it started with Jon Favreau, and he stayed a brain trust member. And then you've got other elements that built around it. But I feel like Favreau, I mean, Marvel, Star Wars, live action, Disney, like there's nothing he hasn't made revelatory. So Rebels just means I have a new fandom to be excited about.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
So excited. Hello
Great
there.
hat.
Yeah, I love that hat.
Hi, thank you. Oh yeah, first order. Yeah. Well, my question is just, do you think that the episode of the Muppets, the old episode of the Muppets that had Luke Skywalker on it or Mark Hamill on it, should that be considered canon? Because I think
100%.
yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Why not? You know.
Oh my god.
And
I
especially
think-
because at Disney World, you know, the Star Wars and the Muppets are right next to each other, so it just makes sense.
Oh, yeah,
And then
that's
there's
right.
there's Star Tours, so it goes Star Wars, the Muppets, Star Tours, and yeah, it should
She's
all.
on to something. You are really
Well, of
on to
course,
something.
Not
Yeah.
only
Oh my
should it be
gosh.
canon, but those seeds that are already planted means it's a built-in
It
shared
needs
universe.
to grow.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
Shared
Oh my
universe.
gosh.
The cantina, those are very Muppet-esque creatures. And
Yeah.
like there are a lot of Muppet-esque it's canon.
Animal
Yeah,
is a Sith
done.
Lord.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
You're right.
awesome.
I want Animal to play jizz music.
There's already. Did you know there's a clip out there
Okay.
of George Lucas saying that Yoda is the love child of Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
It's
Oh my
right
God.
there.
I mean, I always counted Yoda
How
as
old is Kermit?
Muppet. Yeah, like
Yeah. I
Kermit
mean,
is timeless. Is he older than right? How old would he be? How old's Yoda?
very
yeah.
old. But even to make things make more sense, I believe the people who made Grogu actually worked with Jim Henson. So-
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so Grogu could be
Grogu's a Muppet.
a Muppet.
Okay, I've
yeah.
got a new movie I want.
I hope Grogu is considered a Muppet. He should
It's
be.
Top Gun, but the fighter pilot Gonzo
Oh my God.
in Star Wars canon.
Immediate death to everyone.
Because Gonzo on the side of a plane.
Terrifying.
And then the plane blows up. Super Gonzo is born, flies
Yes.
away. Right.
This is great.
Yep.
What was that? Yes, and then he
Yes.
fights Gonzo because why
Yes.
not? Disney owns everything.
Yes.
Fold it in. The well mascot. Is that an ascot? What do they call those?
The what?
That's not an ascot. That's just a handkerchief. What are those called? It's decadent.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good. That's all that
I like
matters.
That's
Love
I
it.
agree.
I guess to answer your first question, I'm 100% about the Top Gun Star Wars. When I heard that Rogue Squadron was announced and then got delayed and may or may not
Yeah.
still be there,
Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt bad about that.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
I mean,
I hope
yeah.
we get something akin to it soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, I'd even take like an anthology of that, or like the Rebel Pathfinders as like Full Metal Jacket kind of style, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just so profitable to go like, we've got these soldiers, they're training, and then they get in an X-wing. It's like, it's so cool. I can visualize all of it.
I'd love to be that. That
Yes.
would be awesome. To get
Disney,
into, like,
she's ready.
I don't know if I'm ready, but
I'll make one be. So with all the Thrawn talk, and he's probably definitely coming up in Ahsoka. do you
sorry,
wanna-
what did you say?
Yeah,
Sorry,
can you
it's a
move a little
little.
closer to the mic?
The mic's really low. Yeah.
How's that?
Perfect.
Cool.
Perfect.
Perfect. So with all the talk about Thrawn, do you want to see him come back as like a villain in his villain role, or are you more along the lines of a redemption arc for him?
For Thrawn, you said?
Mhm.
Ooh, I'd like to see him full force as a villain, dude. I mean, seeing. Oh God, what can I say? There are things that I. Okay.
Whatever you want on the record.
I'd love. Yeah, I want to see Thrawn in full force, just doing his thing. That's all I can say. 'cause
That
I know
totally
some
works.
things- Yeah, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be
Whatever's
so
going to
cool.
happen is going to be great.
I know. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Thrawn's one of those characters I've heard about for so long that I'm really
you
excited
gotta
to
read
like,
the books.
That's
Yeah,
what
Thrawn's
I mean. Is
books,
like
they're so
I've
good.
had it around me because I haven't read the Star. Like I'm a Star Wars
Yeah.
casual. I'll own that.
Right.
I'm really excited to get it. So like he's one of those
Yeah.
characters. Like when I explained to people Thanos like 10
Mhm.
years ago, like you couldn't explain Thanos. So I'm
Right.
really excited to get it.
Yeah, I would say like for everybody who hasn't seen or hasn't read Thrawn, read Thrawn before watching Ahsoka, and then it'll make
The
things make
handsome
sense.
gentleman with the hair.
Yes. MegaCon's going to close in about 30
Oh,
seconds.
yeah,
So
you're
I have
right.
one final question.
Okay.
Carly, where can we find you the rest of
Oh
the weekend?
gosh. All right, so you can find me on YouTube. It's just my name, Carly King. I post lightsaber tutorials, unboxings.
I meant this weekend at MegaCon.
Oh, and
Where can we find
MegaCon.
You might be doing two
Oh,
things that relate
thing.
directly
Yeah,
to
that's
this.
more
I don't know. It's a
important.
crazy.
That's way more important.
It's just autopilot. You went on.
Yeah, so tomorrow at 12 p.m. I will be the moderator for Vivian Lear Blair's panel in the main stage hall, and then Emily Swallow, I believe, at 1 p.m. the next day. So that'll be so fun.
And I'll be here. I got James McAvoy talking tomorrow, and that's gonna be all I'm apparently doing because they said no more. But we'll
Yeah.
also answer your questions if you had questions to us
Yes.
in just a moment.
Totally.
Thank you guys for being here. This
Thank
was so
you
much fun.
guys.
Thank you
Yeah,
to live
thank you
chat.
guys.
That was impromptu live. This was a good time. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The show is now